You're watching Krista Jager on the Thrash Kings YouTube channel.
G'day team, it's Dyno Day down here at BC Performance, and Bogger tells me that this thing is now finally ready to hit the dyno. I'm not 100% sure what has happened over the last 2 weeks, but all I can tell you is the suspense has been building. And for me personally, all I want to do is just hear this thing do one proper full wide open throttle pass. I guess the goal for today might be to hit 1,000 horsepower on this roller dyno. The challenge is going to be getting that actual power down to the rollers to see the number up on the board. At this stage, I'd really like to actually just chat to Bogger and see what has changed over the last couple of weeks, some of the problems that they've had. One of the issues for today might be the fact that the standard ECU is going to limit the rev range to 8,000 RPM, which is still very cool for an LS, but this thing is actually built to rev out to 9. So once it gets the Link ECU, they'll really be able to turn it up, and today's really, I guess, part of the goal might be just to get this thing worn in, bass tune put in, start putting up some numbers, and then we might see what's happening in the future. All right, so now that we've kind of got the intro out of the way, let's actually have a quick chat to Bogger and find out what has changed and what the real plan is for today. Bogger.
Hey mate.
You've got a car.
Yeah.
I heard this thing's running.
It is now, and actually has throttle now too. We had it idling before, but any more than 4.7% throttle,
Yep.
it would just cut all the injection out.
Okay, and what was the main cause of this?
ECU.
Yeah, right.
So pretty much the whole time we were trying to chase issues. We did find a couple of small things, like obviously as we said before, the injector failed on it, and the crank angle sensor, one of the pins was a little bit damaged.
Yeah, okay.
So we got it idling, but we couldn't give it any throttle input. As soon as you give it a throttle input, it'd just hesitate and stumble, like run really lean.
Yep.
And if you tried to slowly increase throttle, once it got to 4.7%, it literally cut all the injection out and just stalled the engine.
So did you find that with those little problems, it ended up meaning you were really just chasing your tail?
Yep.
Yep.
So the last probably 4 days I've spent on it personally trying to chase the issue.
Yep.
Has been the ECU the whole time, and I just haven't been able to work it out. I thought it was just in the tune.
Yep.
So I was trying to change little bits and pieces,
Yep.
and nothing was working, and I was getting frustrated and confused.
Yep.
So I just tried a different ECU and it worked.
Yeah, nice.
Like straight away, we put the file that it originally had in the car 2 years ago when we first built it.
Yep.
Put standard map sensor and a few other standard bits on it just to see if it would start and run. And it started straight away and ran perfect. So I knew that we'd found the issue.
Wow, that's amazing. Now,
Frustrating.
what's the plan for today? What's the end goal for the end of today?
Get the dyno fully done.
Yep, so full tune done.
Full tune done. So I'll stick it on the rollers and load it up. Heat cycle it for maybe half an hour to 45 minutes just to run it in.
Yep.
And I'll be tuning it while we're doing it.
Yeah, yep.
And then we'll start getting into some power runs and see if we can actually get traction and
Yep.
get something decent out of it.
Yep. And now in terms of the traction that you're thinking of, how confident are you that these tyres are going to actually hold on the rollers?
It's not the tyres, because we're on a roller dyno and it's an independent rear end. What I found personally, where we can tie and ratchet it down,
Yep.
the tighter you go, it tends to load the suspension up more rather than put more load on the actual wheel on the roller.
Yeah, okay.
So it gets to a certain point where it just breaks traction and there's nothing you can do, and then the tyres get hot,
Yep.
so then it slips even easier.
Yep.
But being Wisefab on the rear, I might be able to get it closer to the outer end of the knuckle and actually try and put some weight on the wheel on the roller itself.
Yep.
So with most of the other S chassis, same setup, we have issues with traction.
Yep.
But man, we'll just put them a bit wider and see how we go.
I'm pretty pumped. I don't know about you, but this is exciting.
I'm pretty excited.
Does it sound better than you thought?
It revs quicker than I thought.
I was gonna, just as you were blipping it, I'm like, this is a lot, as in it really responsive and
it's
really deep.
And it's not even tuned yet, so it's still probably delayed a bit to what it will be.
Wow. All right, so we've managed to get this thing on the dyno. Bogger spent the last couple of hours just doing a lot of the mid-range fine-tuning in the ECU, and we're right at that point now. We're about to do some power runs. I guess before we do some of these runs, I'd like to get some opinions on what some of these guys are thinking that this is going to do. And so I'll just walk around the shop, ask some questions, and we'll see what kind of numbers we're going to make. All right, so if you have to make a prediction, what are you going to make top end?
Top end before wheel spin?
Before wheel spin.
I don't know, I reckon it'll start breaking the wheels off the dyno at about friggin' 500-ish.
Do you reckon 500 she's going to start wheel spinning?
I reckon that's where it's going. Probably.
We've got our first prediction. All right, Bogger, what do you reckon? What's she going to do?
I reckon it's going to get wheel spin.
Yep.
Well, look, I'm going to go for 550.
550 and then break into wheel spin.
Well, we'll see. I reckon 550 will probably be the number that it sees, I reckon.
Yep, at what RPM?
Oh, I reckon we'll probably see it at maybe 6.5.
Yeah, nice. All right, so what are you thinking?
I'm going about 600, I reckon.
600. That was going to be my number, so I'll have to get a new one.
Yeah.
All right, now, Mr. Bling.
Hey mate.
What do you think? How much?
All of them.
All of the numbers.
Yeah, there's going to be screaming bald eagles out that pipe and high smoke out the back.
All right, just whatever she makes.
All of them.
All right. So I guess if I had to make a prediction on this one, I'm going to go 601 and just price is right this one. So the big change then, they're actually loosening the car off on the dyno. The main reason for this is to let it just ramp up on the roller a little bit more, because it kind of showed that as much as it was getting on power before, it wasn't actually able to get that power down. So now that we're starting to get a bit of traction on the rollers, I'm guessing the plan is just to go full hog and see what she can do. So with a couple more power runs there, with a little bit looser on the dyno, it did ramp up a bit higher. They're getting up there in the power. And if you have a look behind me, you can see these boys are putting on some semis. And so this is going to do a couple of things. First off, I'm really interested to see just how much more grip you can get out of these semis versus a street tire and a dyno. And at the same time, we get to see just how much more power this thing's going to push today. It really does look like at this stage that we're pretty much going to just reach a limit of the tyre and that's it. And we may not see those really big power figures until this thing hits a hub roller, a hub dyno at some point in the future. So we'll see what we're going to do today and go from there. Official break number one. So we've made some pretty good numbers initially, but a couple of things are holding the car back. I've just noticed they've started working on the dump pipe and I think they're welding in an O2 bung. So I'm just going to have a quick chat to Bogger and see exactly why that's happening and what they're looking to achieve. So Bogger, what are they doing and why are they doing it?
Well, Our AFR reading started to go a bit haywire after about 5,000 RPM.
Yep.
So we're putting a bung in now so we can just put the sensor directly in the exhaust
Yep.
and not have to rely on a extension piece and Dyno 0.2 setup. So
Yeah,
just
okay.
go directly into the dump.
Yeah, and I'm guessing this was something you wanted to do in the long term anyway.
Have to do it when we go to the link anyway,
Yep.
because we'll run a wideband in it with the link ECU, but the factory LS ECU doesn't need it.
Yep.
Yeah, so we had a bit of trouble with wheel spin, so we put some bigger tyres on it now, some new semi-slicks.
Yep.
So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it gets a little bit more grip.
And so in your experience by, I guess, switching from the street tire to the semi, how much more traction are you thinking this is going to have?
Don't know.
Yeah, it's a bit of an experiment?
Yeah, a little bit. So we've run semis previously, but nothing this powerful.
Okay, yep.
I think the biggest power car we've had on the dyno was a 2,500 horsepower drag car, but it had massively wide full slicks on it.
Yeah, okay.
And everyone
yep.
says not to run them, but it got traction and they didn't fly apart and everything was good. So
Okay, so everybody said, don't do something, and you thought, well, we'll just do it anyways. If it works, it works.
that's all he had. He didn't have spare tyres. So
yeah, okay.
That's
So
all we had on.
on a car like that, at 2,500 horsepower, what's the wheel speed once you get to the top of the...
I honestly don't even know.
Yeah, okay.
No, I couldn't even tell.
I'd imagine that'd be pretty intense.
Yeah, I was scared because I thought it was going to jump off the dyno. We had 6 straps holding it back and
Yep.
4 holding it down. So, but yeah, look, we'll see if this works any better.
Yeah, nice. Let's do it. Just started coming up. Yeah, right. Instantly into wheel spin. So I'm guessing it's going to take just a little bit of time to get those tyres up to temperature and actually start getting the benefit of the semi. So still wheel spinning? So which line are we on then? The green? Yeah. So again, apparently that one wasn't wheel spin, but you did roll over pretty early, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Yeah. Easily still rolling off early. Alright, so it looks like this is all we're going to be doing for today. With the O2 bung put in, it was definitely a step forward, but at the same time there's been a couple of more issues. So let's wrap this one up and figure out exactly what the plan is from now. So Bogger, what was the limiting factor in the end?
Fuel.
Fuel.
Yeah, just running out of fuel. So we've got twin 255s in a surge tank and one low pressure, high volume pump feeding the surge.
Yep.
And the injector duty cycle is just starting to go through the roof and it's leaning out, doesn't matter what I do. So I'm pretty sure we're out of pump or draining the surge, which the pumps we've got in there were going to be at their maximum anyway if we went for the 1,000 horsepower.
Yep.
So it's not a bad thing. I just thought we'd get a little bit further, which it's not doing. So
Yep.
what was the figure that we made? 530?
540? Around there. Yep.
But that was leaning out a lot. So
Okay.
But putting the semis on made a big difference.
Yep.
So we didn't get wheel spin down low and yeah, we ended up making, well, so far it's making 430 kilowatts at around about 4,200 RPM.
Yep.
So we've still got a fair few RPMs to go.
Yep.
So yeah, it's going to be good. Just try and sort this fuel system out and have another crack.
So on that last run with the semis, what torque figure did it make?
Look, it made 950 Newton meters.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, is that a
All right, well, that looks like that's the end of the session today. I can't tell you how good this thing sounds in person. You can probably tell from my facial expressions that the moment this thing ramps up, it's intense in person. Little disappointing that it wasn't able to go a little further and that the fuel system wasn't able to keep up, but it sounds like this thing's going to be fixed tomorrow and should be back on the dyno tomorrow night. So if you want to see more from us, make sure you like and subscribe to the Thrash Kings YouTube channel. This thing will be hitting the dyno again tomorrow night, so hopefully I'll have that video up within 24 hours. So if you're watching this one, we'll see you next time. Thank you.